Hello, beautiful soul. Welcome back to my channel. It's your girl Kirby. I'm really excited and grateful that you're here with me today. I've moved into a new place. These things here are decorations because it was my daughter's 3rd birthday. One of the things that I pride myself on is that I have been so open in sharing like how I integrate things and what I move through on my spiritual journey. And anyone who's followed me, you know, I had over 320,000 followers on TikTok, and I've kind of peeled away from TikTok because I started getting like the ick of it. Plus I deleted like all my social media a while ago, and I've just been really turned off by social media, but for some reason Source keeps guiding me to share on YouTube, and so here I am sharing on YouTube. I also used to have a podcast that had been listened to in like, I don't know, 30 or 40 different countries, thousands of listeners all over the world, but I pulled back from a lot of things. I had to like recenter, realign my life. But I deeply miss sharing my integration, my spiritual integration, and how I'm navigating things, what I'm going through, what I'm doing, how I'm evolving, expanding, up-leveling in my own life. So I'm gonna make it a monthly thing, I think. We'll see, because I also had said that I wanted to post every single day, and then I low-key fell off after like, I don't know, 7 or 8 days. But that's because I had a massive thing that happened at the end of January that I wasn't expecting. I was invited to join a sacred peyote plant medicine ceremony, and that has absolutely changed my entire life. I haven't decided if that's something that I'm deeply going to share about yet, because I really highly respect peyote, and I'm just not sure that it's something that it's meant. I don't know if I'm supposed to be sharing about it. Like, I have to have more conversations with God about this before I decide if I'm going to share about my peyote ceremony, but it has 100% transformed my entire life. I've done a significant amount of plant medicine, probably, I haven't kept track, but I would say somewhere around 30 to 50 plant medicine ceremonies at this point in time. Plant medicine has absolutely transformed my life on my spiritual journey. But this was the first time that I got the honor to take peyote, and peyote is unlike any other medicine that I've ever done. It's shifted everything for me in such a short amount of time. I'll talk a little bit about my integration of that and what went through in February, but there's a lot of other things that I desire to share about so that you can know and understand like how you can be up-leveling and evolving on your own spiritual journey. And I feel like the best way that I can show you or empower you to expand on your own journey is through what I'm going through on my own journey. I might be a couple steps ahead of you on my spiritual journey, but I'm just like every other human. I am evolving and growing and expanding my consciousness to embody the highest and most evolved version of myself, to live my highest expression. And it's a journey. We're all on a journey together. Like, I don't view myself as better than anyone else. I just view us all as evolving and growing and expanding and moving through things, moving through our karmic patterns to become our best selves. So we're just gonna jump right into this. One of the things that I decided for 2025 is that I want to learn how to do 2 new things each month. And I didn't do this in January, but I did do it in February. And those 2 new things that I learned in February, they have to do with food. And it's not always going to be about food, but this is like what I started with. And so I learned how to make sauerkraut, and I learned how to make homemade pitas. These 2 things are so ridiculously easy to make, but until you learn how to do something, you just don't know. Like, you can't, like, until you actually learn the process or the steps of something, you just don't realize how like easy and simple these things are. So last year I got really into making focaccia bread. I'm really good at making focaccia bread. Everybody's been on like a sourdough thing. I haven't made sourdough because I feel like that's a lot more steps than focaccia. Focaccia is like super easy to make. So I've been making focaccia bread like 3 times a week for me and my daughter to eat, and we are obsessed with it. Also, so much cheaper to make focaccia bread, and also and it's so much better. I haven't bought store-made bread in years. I will not eat it. It tastes awful. Every person should be making their own homemade bread. I actually really want to get a bread maker because I just think that like homemade bread is like the most amazing thing I've ever had in my life. And I'm a carb lover. I love bread. I think my favorite food is toast. I could eat all kinds of toast. I'm obsessed. And so anyways, let's move past all of that. I'm gonna go probably learn more bread things this year because like I said, I genuinely am a carb girl, carb woman. I'm not a girl. Everyone's in this like, I'm a girly, the GWORL. I'm like, I'm a woman. I'm 37 years old. Hi. Why? Anyways, so the two things I learned in February were sauerkraut and how to make homemade pitas. My daughter and I have both also just become obsessed with this. I already had been eating sauerkraut. I just bought it from the store, and here in Mexico it costs around 150 pesos to get like a really homemade, like good sauerkraut. I would say that's around $7. You can obviously get them cheaper, but this is like an organic sauerkraut. To make homemade sauerkraut, all I had to do was buy a thing of organic cabbage that was 50 pesos. And I made 2 huge jars. It's like literally, it's so freaking easy. So that's the thing. If we want to grow and expand to like being the best versions of ourselves, your growth and expansion is dependent upon you learning new things, right? So learning, like challenge yourself. Is there one thing you can learn each week? Like technically I could learn one new thing each week, but I am a mom to a 3-year-old daughter, and anyone who has a freaking toddler knows that you have like 3 seconds to yourself. Making these very easy recipes was something that I was like, oh, I can totally do this. So now the things that I want to move into in March, I really would like to learn, I'm putting this out into the universe, I really would like to learn how to make kombucha, because I love kombucha, and I also looked it up and it's ridiculously easy to make kombucha. I was like, oh my gosh, I could totally make this. So I also just want to make things that I already like purchase out, and like how can I make them at a more cost efficient way, and also they're just better for you when you make them at home and you put your love and your energy into them. So that's one of the things that I'd like to do for March. Another thing that I moved through in February is I moved February 1st, and this was actually a huge shift in my life for me and my daughter, because we moved out of the condo that we were living in, where we used to be living with her dad. And I think that that's also part of the reason why I had to like put a halt on everything that I was doing, is because my daughter and I moved through a lot of huge, big energy in February, like moving into a new space where it was just she and I. It was like fully energetically cutting us off from like the energy of how our old family dynamic had been when we were living there with her father. Her father and I are co-parenting. We have good co-parenting together. He lives in a different country than we do. He left Mexico and he's now living back in the United States. There's no ill will between us. We do have a good, it's funny because Gwyneth Paltrow stated this like, I don't know, 20 years ago, like conscious uncoupling, but her father and I did consciously uncouple. And although I did have a broken heart from our relationship ending, we have a really good co-parenting relationship that I desire to continue to have for my daughter. So there isn't any ill will there, but still that energetic severing of when you leave a place that was like grounded in with somebody else's energy into a completely brand new space, it was a huge shock to my daughter and I's system. And I had massive amounts of sadness and loneliness and the feeling of abandonment that came forward for me as a result of a huge move like that. And those things also came forward as a result of the peyote that was done at the end of January. Peyote has 100% transformed my entire life. It has shifted me in ways that I didn't even know was possible. It's by far the most transformative medicine I've ever taken, and it was the most powerful thing I've ever experienced in my entire life. Like I said, I'm not going to talk too much into this peyote ceremony, but what has been coming forward, what people think that on a plant medicine ceremony is when the healing happens or when the transformation happens. It doesn't. The expansion and the healing seeds get planted during those kinds of ceremonies, and then you have to integrate it into your life in weeks, months following the ceremony. And if you are actually on the spiritual journey, like plant medicine is not a replacement for spiritual practices. Plant medicine isn't a replacement for your own healing tools. It amplifies those things, and you need to be able to implement and integrate all of the things that are coming forward. So what got pushed to the surface from my shadow was deep levels, deep generational levels of sadness and fear and loneliness and abandonment. I have been moving through this abandonment wound since he left Mexico last August. That's also why there's been just like so much has shifted in my life since last August. That was a shock to my system when that happened, and I didn't even fully realize that I had this deep of an abandonment wound. And then this peyote ceremony really thrust all of that forward. So The first 3 weeks of February, I had to sit in my pain. That's a huge thing that I'm a massive proponent on, is that when our feelings come forward, you have to feel your feelings. So I had to sit in my sadness and reparent myself through that sadness, alchemizing it with love. I had to sit in my loneliness, like sitting in my sadness and my loneliness and my abandonment was so deeply painful for me. It was so incredibly painful for me. And then I'm doing that. I do not recommend, mark my words for this, if you're someone who ever wants to do a plant medicine ceremony, I do not recommend doing a plant medicine ceremony and then having to have another big life-altering thing happen at the same time. I don't recommend doing a ceremony and then moving like what I did. I don't do that, okay? Because it's too much on the nervous system to handle. Like I already was dealing with, I'm gonna be moving through that sadness and loneliness and abandonment, but then having a move that was so energetically severing and a huge life-altering thing at the same time, I don't recommend doing that. So if you're ever gonna do plant medicine, you do want to strategically plan it out and what's going on in your life, that you will have downtime and slow time and comfort time to be able to integrate all of that stuff in. You can't just keep going like as if everything else has been normal. Like you need the space to be able to feel your feels, whatever the plant medicine is moving up and out of you for your own expansion and growth. So 3 weeks really was painful, like so much pain coming forward to me. And I was surprised at how much fear I also still was like operating from. But I guess if you have an abandonment wound, fear is deeply connected with abandonment. I mean, think about the term abandonment, right? So that was a lot of things that were moving out of me, and so much of this came back. I had visions coming forward of that. A lot of it was from when I was an infant, and my parents had me crying in my crib, and they didn't come and soothe me. And so a lot of it was from basically a cry it out experience that I had as an infant, and that kind of had set and integrated into my nervous system as a very, very young child. And then that I created my own beliefs. Like your parents and nobody else does anything to you, but as a result of these things I experienced as a young child, I created my own beliefs that meant I'm not good enough, and that I'm not worthy of love, and I'm not deserving, and that I'm abandoned, AKA because I didn't receive the nurturing that I needed when I was in a moment of need as an infant. As a result of me moving through all of this, and then also the big move, I also had to hold a lot of space for my daughter. She is a highly sensitive person, just like I am, and anytime that I move through something in a deeply powerful spiritual ceremony, or even like just the move that we had, she's deeply affected by it as well, especially because she's so deeply energetically connected to me too as her person. And what I'm healing through me, I'm also healing through her, because she's in the age of 0 to 7 where there is no analytical of things. Like everything is just black and white. So when I move something so deeply out of my subconscious, it moves it deeply out of hers. So she's been so clingy and needy and needing so much extra from me in that time frame, because I'm moving an abandonment wound out of me. So I have to nurture her in a deeper way so that I'm healing the abandonment out of her too, because she's carrying that too. If I was carrying it and I gave birth to her, then she's carrying it as well. And so I've spent a lot of time in February also just giving so much more love and energy into my daughter. She also then had her 3rd birthday, which was like so beautiful and special. And it's funny because I'll have to show some videos of it, but the theme of her party was just like love. And I didn't even intentionally do that, but there's just hearts everywhere and just love everywhere. And I realized like how much unconditional love I unconsciously wanted to pour into her, to let her know that she is safe and supported and loved through all of this. And that, it all was really, really unconscious. I never had intended to make her party theme around love, but it ended up being a really beautiful thing. And I'm deeply grateful to be able to have the wisdom and the knowledge to be able to hold that space for her so that she doesn't continue to carry these wounds moving forward and have to heal from them later in life the same way that I am currently. I fell off from my spiritual practices in the end of January and all of February again, because of our huge move into the house, I also didn't feel comfortable waking up early in the morning and abandoning my daughter in the bed and her not feeling safe in this home yet, because again, my daughter is so deeply sensitive. She gets upset about things that like don't even make sense to get upset. And this also was how I was as a child, which again is why I'm so honored to be able to know this and to be able to do this for her. Like, she cried and was deeply emotional when I had to change my car tire. She's just a highly sensitive child. She's very emotional. It's not just because she's a 3-year-old. She's been like this her whole life. We like learned this and realized this very early on. I know that this is how I was as a child. I was deeply sensitive, and again, I was shamed so much. Always say, why are you so sensitive? Some people are highly sensitive people, and they're the most special, in my opinion, people, because it is a superpower to be able to feel everything so deeply. It can be an awful thing if you don't know how to feel your emotions, which is something that I've really been working through in the last 2 years, but it's been a blessing to be able to hold space for my daughter, teaching her now as a 3-year-old how to feel her feelings, how to feel her emotions. So she's just not gonna have the same problems that I have. But I love having an early spiritual practice in the morning. I love to have about 3 hours to do all of my spiritual practices. That's just what feels best for me. I'm deeply committed to my spiritual practices, and I'll do a video kind of sharing some of my non-negotiables with my spiritual practices. But I was holding so much space for my daughter. I was releasing and clearing so much emotional space for myself with the sadness and the loneliness and the abandonment that I needed to prioritize trying to get as much sleep as I can, holding space for her, and I fell off for my spiritual practices. So I'm actually gonna be starting in the next couple days a 100-day challenge where I'm deeply committed to my spiritual practices and a couple other things, because I really wanna build back momentum in my life. And if I'm being honest with all of you, I experience the most powerful, magical shifts in life when I am so deeply connected to my inner world. When I prioritize and make my inner world my main focus, my outer world shifts so quickly and amazingly, and everything works and flows so beautifully and easily, because that's how it works. Life is just a mirror to who we are within. So if you really want to see massive shift and transformation in your life, shift your inner world. Go all in on your spiritual practices and just watch how the world transforms as a result of you being deeply committed to your inner way of being. One thing that has to do with food, which is like kind of bizarre and random. Again, I'm kind of all over the place with all of this stuff, but I'm just sharing. I had written out a list and I'm just kind of going through all of them. For the last 3.5 years, I've eaten eggs every single day for breakfast. I'm somebody who just is like very routine with things, especially since I became a mom. I had kind of decision fatigue, and I just didn't want to have to figure out like what's for dinner, what's for lunch, and so I just would eat the exact same thing every single day. Every single day I eat eggs. And I've recently gotten the egg ick. I literally am like, I don't think I can consume eggs anymore for breakfast. So I need to find another breakfast that I really enjoyed eating, because eggs have been something that's really nurtured me. And I also was vegan up until I was like 6 months pregnant. And then I intuitively felt that I needed to be consuming. I had a really tough pregnancy, which I'm not gonna get into right now, but I can share about if that's something that you're interested in. I felt called intuitively to eat eggs and fish. I still don't eat meat or dairy, and that's just a personal spiritual belief. But I started eating eggs and fish, which I felt fine up until this point, and then recently I've been getting the egg ick, and I'm like, I don't think I can eat eggs anymore. So again, everything's always so intuitive. You just have to listen to that, and I also feel like peyote's purging that out of me also as well. Eggs are really important for pregnant women and breastfeeding mothers, because eggs are so high in choline, and you need an obscene amount of choline that are very supportive. And so I do believe that certain things are meant to be. Like, I don't believe you should be taking a choline supplement. Like, I think there's a reason why there's so much choline in eggs, and they're super beneficial to supporting pregnant and breastfeeding mothers. There's also, I read like a lot of books on how indigenous women have nurtured themselves through life, and like indigenous women would eat 6 to 12 eggs per day, like when they were pregnant or breastfeeding. And I was like, wow. And I actually, for like the first year, I was eating about 6 to 8 eggs per day, not always in the morning, but at least usually like 4 to 6 in the morning. And that really helped nurture my body postpartum, as well as provide really, really, really amazing breast milk for my daughter. I like literally have created such amazing fatty breast milk, and it's because of really giving my body the nutrients that it needed in my postpartum experience. But I feel like because I'm coming to the end of my breastfeeding journey, I've done it for 3 years and I'm deeply proud of that. My daughter absolutely loves it. I'm sure she would continue going for another 3 years if I allowed her to, but literally I am just feeling so ready to be done with it. I want my body back at this point in time, and I'm really, really proud of doing it this long. But yeah, I feel like because it's I'm getting the egg ick, that also is kind of like closing out the season of this, which feels really, really good intuitively as well. So anytime you start feeling grossed out by something that you've been eating, you really have to listen. Those are all intuitive nudges being like, this no longer works. You no longer need this anymore. Maybe you're craving something else that's supposed to fill that spot for you. You really have to just kind of lean into what you're being guided towards. And sometimes it doesn't make sense. Like, I don't know the bigger pieces of this, but I just listen to all of my intuitive nudges. And I know that it's just moving this up and out of my system, and that God, source, is going to bring through other things that are just gonna like fill it all out. I've actually been loving really, really fresh fruit lately, like really cold, fresh fruit. And I also have not really been eating fruits and vegetables a ton over the last couple years because I've had zero cravings for them. And I'm somebody who truly believes in listening to your cravings. I believe my body was being nurtured in a way to support really amazing breast milk for my daughter. That season is ending, and now I'm feeling called to like all of this really, really fresh, raw fruits and vegetables, and that feels really good within me. You couldn't have paid me for like while I was pregnant in the first 2 years after my daughter, you couldn't have paid me. I have not eaten a salad in years because raw vegetables sounded absolutely awful to me. I was like, don't come near me with that. Even I really did not feel called to eat raw fruits, but those are all really cold, like type of foods. And when you're breastfeeding, you need really warm, nourishing, kind of like Ayurvedic type of foods to like nurture the body from within. Like warm foods are the most important thing. So I just really haven't eaten cold foods or raw foods, but now my body's all of a sudden like, oh, I want all of this cold, like raw stuff. So again, everything is just being guided and worked out in a much bigger way for you. It's just up to you to listen to the nudges and just allow them, take action from them, and stop overthinking and trying to like pre-plan everything out. Just let it all work really natural for you. Another thing that's come up post peyote, I have honestly thought that I had moved through this, but I guess I hadn't, is I had a deep hate for myself, which I don't even like admitting, but I'm going to, because the whole point of our spiritual journeys is genuinely to return to love. And I realized that I have a deep hate for myself, for my body. Just a FYI, people who love themselves don't hate their lives. This is why my spiritual journey has been such a transformation for me, because when I started my spiritual journey, I did hate my life. So your life is just a reflection of you. If you hate your life, that means you hate yourself. And the only thing that you really need to focus on is loving yourself. So now, for the last month or so, I've really been saying I love you to myself at least 100 to maybe 1,000 times per day, just kind of running it in the back of my mind all throughout the day. It has shifted so much for me drastically, especially as I've been moving through so much sadness and loneliness. I've just been literally speaking to my little inner child, being like, Kirby, I love you. I love you. I love you. You're important. And that's been really healing for me. And it really made me realize how much I had a lack of self-love for myself. And that's the most important thing of all of this, especially for me. I'm deeply calling in my most amazing, sacred, beautiful soulmate and future partner moving forward. And in order to attract the greatest love of my life, which is what I've been calling in, and that was also my intention with my peyote ceremony. Whenever you're doing any kind of plant medicines, your intention is the most important thing. My intention was I want to attract in the deepest love that I've ever experienced, the greatest love. Well, you can't attract in a love that you don't give yourself. And it made me realize, like, oh my gosh, I don't love myself. I thought that I did, but it genuinely showed me that I do not. So self-love has also been probably one of the biggest priorities through February, which really, really showed me how much I had not been operating from a state of self-love, and that genuinely is the most important thing. I'm gonna try to go through these a little bit faster because we're kind of far into this, and I have a lot of things. One thing that's gonna be a part of my 100-day challenge is I really am challenging myself to jump rope every single day. My physical health is now like a bigger priority for me. I lost a good amount of weight when my daughter's father and I separated, because I was holding on to so much energetically because I didn't feel safe. That's what the body does. If you can't lose weight, you have to look at areas in your life of where you maybe don't feel safe. Maybe you're at a toxic job, maybe you don't have healthy relationships, maybe things with family, whatever. And a lot of times it's not just like you're eating bad food or you're not working out. Energetically, you're going to hold on to weight if you do not feel safe. I remember I had an Akashic record reading with a client in 2020, and she asked, like, why can't I lose weight? And the message that came through for her was like, you don't feel safe. Your body's holding on to this weight. It is creating an armor around you because you don't feel safe to be you. And until you feel safe to be you, you're not gonna lose this weight. So yeah, I know that, and I've always remembered that, and I realized like I could not lose my postpartum weight. I literally still looked 6-7 months pregnant, and I was 2.5 years postpartum. And then the second her father and I separated, all of that weight fell off of me, and everybody was like, Kirby, you look amazing. And I was like, I've not done anything. I haven't changed anything. Like, I literally was a matter of severing and removing myself from a relationship that wasn't safe and healthy for me. My desire now for 2025 is to get into better physical shape, because I always was somebody who was super active. Prior to my spiritual journey, I'd gotten into like weightlifting, and I used to be able to squat like 185 pounds and like deadlift like 200 pounds. Like, I was very, very like muscle curvy. I was shredded. And it's not that I want to get back to that. I actually feel okay in my body. It's just I want to feel really, really good. I want to feel good. And in case you didn't know, 15 minutes of jump roping burns double the amount of calories as running for 15 minutes. So it's an amazing cardiovascular thing to do. I have 15 minutes, I can do 15 minutes, but like for me to go work out for an hour when I'm the sole caregiver of my daughter is not possible. I also can jump rope while being around her and not having to like go for a run. So it's something that's just really attainable for me. I empower you to look at your own life and how can you incorporate something without having to exert or add on more stress. Like maybe driving and getting a gym membership is too much, but how can you integrate something else into your life to where it feels not so much of a pressure or stress to do it? That's why I'm choosing jump roping. I recently, I started, it might have started in January, but I also definitely did it 2 times in February, where I owned my own stuff and I apologized to my ex. And I think taking ownership, once you become aware of things, like you can't heal what you don't know, but once you become aware of things, especially if people are important to you, like I have no desire to get back with my daughter's father and my ex now moving forward. However, I will take accountability for the things where I was wrong within our relationship, even though our relationship has ended. Maybe for me, I feel like I want to continue doing this with him because I do have to have communication with him. And for a good couple months after we separated and I had to be on calls with him every single day for my daughter, I had deep anger and resentment towards him. And just because something happened, and maybe I had every reason to have anger and resentment, it doesn't matter what he did or what happened. I was angry. I was resentful, and that's a reflection of me. That's not a reflection of him. And so as, again, so much moved up and out of me through February, I took ownership of a lot of things, and I actively said to him, like, I'm sorry for these things, and I was wrong. And as a result of me having the courage and the strength to be vulnerable with him, he apologized for things back to me, and I've never ever thought that I would get apologies back from him. So sometimes we think that we need another person to apologize, but are you actually willing to own up to the ways in which you were wrong in things? Because maybe you're wrong too. And maybe you weren't at your best, and maybe there are things that you could have done better. And if you have the courage to own up to your own stuff, other people will also be willing to be vulnerable with you as well. And so I did receive apologies back from him, which I never ever thought that I would get, because thus far I hadn't gotten any kind of apologies. So I didn't do it to get an apology from him. I did it because I genuinely wanted to take ownership of my behavior where I knew that I was wrong once I went through a deeper healing with peyote and a lot of other stuff with the move. And so I feel really good about that, and it just really kind of closed a chapter. Peyote has also really empowered me to surrender and have a deeper trust with God. My relationship with God is probably the most important thing in my life. God moves through you as you, but God is so much bigger than you. Like, you are directing the God energy through your life to turn into things within your own life. It's creative energy. However, God is all. God is so much bigger than you, and you could never be all that God is. Like, you can be and activate that God energy that's moving through you, but God is the trees, God is the hummingbirds, God is the butterflies, God is the air molecules, God is all of it. And I have literally deepened. I didn't realize that I was also holding so much anger and resentment towards God. And so I've been really surrendering and deepening my relationship and my faith and my trust and my knowing in the divine. And that's also been so, so incredibly powerful for me. That's been the best part of my spiritual journey. I read things of Paramhansa Yogananda, and he wrote the book, The Autobiography of a Yogi, which I highly recommend. All of his stuff is all about like deepening your connection with the divine, because if you just deepen your connection with the divine, you know that you're always taken care of. You don't have worry. You don't have fear. You can't have those things if you know that you are one with God. And so putting a lot of other things aside and keeping your focus on the divine will shift a lot of things in your life. And again, this was like a recalibration, just like really bringing me back to the truth and the knowing and just the power of God, which I love. I didn't sleep well. I haven't slept well even the last 2 nights. I haven't taken melatonin in 4 years. I had to take melatonin the last 2 nights because I literally have not been sleeping. It's been having a huge effect on me. And like I literally needed to get sleep so bad. So I have felt better because the last 2 nights I have actually gotten sleep, but I have not slept well all through February. That definitely also had a huge effect on me, but it could also be because so much energy was moving up and out of me, up and out of my daughter. We were moved into a new home. Yeah, it just has been tough. Not getting sleep is a huge thing for me, especially when you're a mom. Like also when you are in lack of sleep, so much more of your wounds come forward because you are irritable. And so it's forced so many other things up and out of me, but maybe God has putting that in place as well to like take away my sleep to help more things move. I'm not really sure. But yeah, it's ebbs and flows. We go through seasons. Pay attention to your sleep patterns as well. It'll also help you kind of have deeper clarity on your own spiritual journey. I stopped following astrology and I love it. I'm probably gonna have to make a full video on this. I have not felt connected to astrology for probably the last, I don't know, year and a half or so. And I used to talk about astrology a lot, like within teaching and helping people. I've supported over 15,000 people in over 50 different countries on their spiritual journeys. And it's not that I don't believe in astrology anymore. I think there are relevancies to planetary shifts and things that are happening, but I feel like so many people are so deeply consumed with astrology. What you focus on grows. Astrology, I feel like, takes away the power that's within you. And the more that I stopped using astrology as like this baseline to validate something or whatever, instead I just started really listening to the God power within me. I started reclaiming a lot of power. I feel like I was giving energy to something that wasn't necessary. I think that astrology can be helpful and is a good tool, but I think it's holding more people back on their spiritual journey than helping them. I think that it's not allowing people to like listen to themselves, to trust themselves. They're more concerned like, oh, this is moving, so this must be happening for me. It's like, what if that isn't happening for you? What if something completely different is happening within you, but you're so consumed with what's going on with astrology that you're not listening to the real thing? And I feel like I've finally been able to settle into listening to my body and like what my body's trying to tell me, and that it has nothing to do with astrology. It has nothing to do with human design. It has nothing to do with the Schumann resonance moving. It just has to do with this is where I'm at on my journey. And the more I keep my focus on myself and on God, the more I'm aware of what is moving up and out of me. I can see my patterns more clearly instead of trying to fit my patterns into what's going on with astrology. So for me, that feels so good on my spiritual journey at this point, and I'm loving it. I haven't even been following the moons, and the full moon is something that I've literally followed for the last 5-6 years, and I haven't even been paying attention or following to that. I've just been tuning into what's going on within me every single day, what intuitive messages I'm getting, and my deeper faith in God. Like I said, my daughter had her 3rd birthday, which like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe my daughter is 3. She's literally the light of my life, my sweet, beautiful angel. It was deeply healing for me. It also brought forth a lot of sadness and loneliness because like planning and putting up decorations and all these things are something that I imagined to do with her father. Those are not things that I like when I had a child. I didn't think that I would be doing these things on my own. So kind of facing that and moving through that. I also had a lot of anger and bitterness and resentment and kind of rage come forward also that was sparked with him, her father. Like, he didn't do anything, but because of the planning and the setting up of the party, I had that come forward. But none of that, like when these things are coming forward, like her father, his name's Pablo, it had nothing to do with him. The wounds come from my own father. It has nothing to do with her father. So, oh, my daughter is awake now. Okay, there's a couple other things I'm gonna say. I realized that I had lots of fear and shame with money, so I also had been moving forward and letting go of a lot of fear and shame. I've been very tired and also haven't been able to sleep, but lots of crying and emotional clearing, so be prepared that if you're gonna feel your feels and let things move, you're gonna be quite tired. I've been in a lot of quiet time, haven't watched any TV, which has felt really good because I also don't have a TV in my new place, which is the best thing ever. Hi, beautiful.
Daddy,
Mm-hmm. Nice. A lot of alchemizing of thoughts and feelings, faster than I ever have done before in my life, which has felt really good. I am really kind of evaluating my friendships because I have a friend who I don't feel like is responding to me in the way that I would prefer her to. So I kind of am seeing, is this a friendship I want to let go of? I deeply, deeply love her, but I don't feel like I'm being truly respected. So I have to kind of look into that a little bit more. Anyways, I'm gonna let you all go now that my sweet little baby is awake. And I'm sending you all of my love. I think it's really important to evaluate your own months. Maybe weekly, you don't want to do it, but you have to look at your months, what's working, what's not working, what are you moving through, and how can you help yourself supporting in that moving forward. So this is how my February went. I know that March will be even better. We're gonna move through even more things and activate and bring new in. So see what you want to bring into your life, what do you want to learn, what do you want to move forward with, and what are you letting go of? And it's really important to look at your patterns, see your patterns, see where things are going, see where things are not. And the more that you're willing to, the faster you will be able to up level and evolve and expand. I'm sending you all of my love, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.